What if every book, every law, every piece of history vanished overnight? Picture a world where words never found their way onto clay, parchment, or paper, where stories lived and died with the voices that told them. It's almost impossible to imagine, isn't it? Because writing isn't just a tool, it's the very foundation of civilization itself. From the earliest marks pressed into wet clay to the sleek typography on your screen, the evolution of writing systems is one of humanity's most profound achievements. Today, we're going on a journey, not just through time, but through the minds of the people who invented, adapted, and revolutionized the way we record our thoughts. Think about the last time you scribbled a note or sent a text. That simple act connects you to a chain of innovation stretching back thousands of years. Long before emojis or even alphabets, ancient scribes in Mesopotamia were pressing wedge-shaped symbols into clay tablets. Over in Egypt, hieroglyphs adorned temple walls, telling stories of gods and kings. And in China, delicate brushstrokes captured philosophy and poetry with elegant precision. Each of these systems didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were born from necessity, shaped by culture, and refined through centuries of trial and error. But here's what's truly fascinating. Writing didn't evolve in isolation. Ideas traveled along trade routes, crossed battlefields, and sailed across oceans. The alphabet you're reading right now has roots in ancient Phoenicia, borrowed by the Greeks, adapted by the Romans, and passed down through countless hands. Every stroke of a pen, every tap of a keyboard carries the weight of this incredible legacy. So as we unravel the stories behind cuneiform, hieroglyphs, and beyond, remember, you're not just learning about symbols. You're uncovering the hidden architecture of human progress, ready to decode the past. Let's begin. What drove humans to transform simple pictures into something far more powerful? It wasn't for poetry or storytelling, at least not at first. The earliest writing systems emerged from something far more practical, the need to count. Imagine a bustling marketplace in ancient Mesopotamia around 5,000 years ago. Farmers brought barley, merchants traded silver, and temples collected offerings. How could anyone keep track of it all? Fingers and memory weren't enough, so they began pressing marks into clay, tiny symbols representing quantities of grain, livestock, or goods. These weren't just scratches, they were the first steps toward a system that would change the world. At first, these symbols were straightforward pictographs. A drawing of a sheep meant a sheep, a jar meant oil. But as societies grew more complex, so did the demands on record keeping. A temple administrator didn't just need to note 10 sheep, they needed to record who delivered them, when, and why. Over centuries, those simple pictures evolved into abstract shapes, capable of conveying not just objects but ideas, actions, even sounds. This was the birth of cuneiform, the world's first known writing system. Its name comes from the Latin word for wedge, because scribes used a reed stylus to press wedge-shaped marks into soft clay tablets. What's remarkable is how quickly cuneiform moved beyond receipts and inventories. Once people realized symbols could capture speech, writing exploded into new realms. Kings used it to proclaim victories, priests to compose hymns, and merchants to send letters across empires. The same system that once tracked sacks of grain now preserved the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest stories, and it wasn't just Mesopotamia. Along the Nile, Egyptian hieroglyphs followed a similar path, starting as temple accounts before blossoming into intricate narratives of mythology and history. But here's the twist: writing didn't spread because it was easy. Learning cuneiform or hieroglyphs took years of practice. Scribes were elite, their skills passed down in strict schools. Yet civilizations kept investing in this difficult technology because the payoff was immense. Writing let rulers govern vast territories, priests codify beliefs, and merchants build networks spanning continents. It turned fleeting thoughts into permanent records, allowing ideas to travel further and last longer than any human voice ever could. So the next time you jot down a grocery list, remember you're tapping into an invention that didn't just record history. It made history possible. Clay tablets might seem fragile, but they carried the weight of empires. The Sumerians didn't just invent cuneiform. They refined it into a tool so versatile it could tally taxes one moment and weave epic poetry the next. Picture a scribe's workshop in the city of where students spent years mastering hundreds of wedge-shaped signs. Each mark followed precise rules: a horizontal wedge for a vertical one for me, combinations creating syllables or whole words. This wasn't just writing, it was a puzzle where every piece held multiple meanings depending on context. What made cuneiform revolutionary was its adaptability. When the Akkadians conquered Sumer, they didn't discard the script, they repurposed it for their own language, adding new symbols while keeping the core system. Later, the Babylonians used it to carve Hammurabi's code into stone, proving writing could enforce justice as well as record it. Even the Hittites, speaking a language unrelated to any in Mesopotamia, adopted cuneiform to draft treaties and chronicle battles. For over 3,000 years, this script bridged cultures across the ancient Near East. Yet cuneiform's complexity sowed the seeds of its decline. Learning it required memorizing hundreds of signs, each with multiple readings. As trade grew faster and societies demanded simpler communication, newer scripts like Aramaic, written with just 22 letters, began to replace it. The last known cuneiform tablet, an astronomical text, dates to 75 CE. By then, the once mighty script had become a relic, its secrets buried under desert sands until 19th century archaeologists painstakingly pieced them back together. But here's the twist: cuneiform didn't vanish without a trace. Its legacy lives on in the very concept of writing, proof that symbols could capture not just things, but the flow of human speech. And as we turn from Mesopotamia's clay tablets to Egypt's papyrus scrolls, we'll see how another civilization took the idea of writing and painted it in strokes of timeless artistry. While Mesopotamian scribes pressed wedges into clay, Egyptian artisans were carving elegance into stone. Hieroglyphs, literally sacred carvings, weren't just a writing system, they were a masterpiece of symbolism and design. Imagine standing in the shadow of a towering temple wall, its surface alive with intricate images of falcons, scarabs, and coiled serpents. To the untrained eye, they might seem like mere decorations, but every curve and line held meaning. Unlike cuneiform's abstract wedges, hieroglyphs retained their pictorial beauty, even as they evolved into a sophisticated script capable of recording everything from royal decrees to medical texts. What made hieroglyphs truly unique was their flexibility. They operated on 3 levels at once. Some symbols represented whole words, others stood for consonants, and still others served as silent guides to clarify meaning. Take the owl glyph, for example. It could mean the actual bird, the sound M in names, or function as a determinative to signal that the preceding word related to darkness or night. This layered approach allowed scribes to pack dense meaning into every inscription, but it also made mastery a lifetime's work. Only the elite, priests, officials, and royal scribes could navigate this intricate system, adding to its mystique. For centuries, hieroglyphs guarded their secrets as tightly as the pharaohs guarded their tombs. Then came the Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799 by French soldiers digging fortifications near the Nile Delta. This unassuming slab of black basalt bore the same decree in three scripts: Greek, Demotic, a cursive Egyptian script, and hieroglyphs. Scholars like Jean-François Champollion spent decades painstakingly matching patterns between the known Greek text and the enigmatic symbols. The breakthrough came when Champollion realized that cartouches, oval frames around certain glyphs, spelled out the names of rulers like Ptolemy phonetically. Suddenly, a script that had been silent for over 1,000 years began to whisper its stories again. Yet hieroglyphs weren't just practical tools, they were sacred art. Egyptians believed writing held magical power, that carving a spell in a tomb could ensure eternal life, or that erasing a name could doom a soul to oblivion. This spiritual dimension explains why the script endured for 3 millennia, outlasting empires and invasions. Even when the Greeks and Romans ruled Egypt, hieroglyphs persisted in temples, their prestige untarnished. Only with the rise of Christianity did their use fade. The last known inscription carved at Philae Temple in 394 CE. As we move from the sun-baked temples of Egypt to the riverbanks of the Indus Valley, we encounter a mystery that makes hieroglyphs seem straightforward by comparison. The symbols left by this ancient civilization remain undeciphered, their meanings locked away without a Rosetta Stone to guide us. What stories might those cryptic seals and tablets hold? The search for answers continues, connecting us once again to humanity's relentless drive to make marks that endure. The Indus Valley civilization flourished along the banks of ancient rivers in what's now Pakistan and northwest India, building sprawling cities with advanced drainage systems and thriving trade networks. Yet for all their achievements, they left behind one of history's most tantalizing puzzles: hundreds of carved seals and pottery fragments marked with strange, stylized symbols. Unlike cuneiform's wedges or hieroglyphs' detailed figures, these characters appear deceptively simple: fish-like shapes, ladder patterns, and geometric designs arranged in short sequences. Were they a full writing system or something more rudimentary? The answer could rewrite our understanding of early human communication. What makes the Indus script so baffling is its brevity. Most inscriptions contain just 4 or 5 symbols, with the longest found so far stretching to only 26. Compare that to Mesopotamian tablets crammed with hundreds of cuneiform signs, and you start to see why experts are divided. Some argue these marks were purely emblematic, like a merchant's logo or a clan's insignia, while others point to patterns suggesting grammatical structure, a hallmark of true writing. Adding to the mystery, these symbols appear across a vast area, from the coast of the Arabian Sea to the foothills of the Himalayas, hinting at a shared system of meaning. Then there's the question of purpose. In Mesopotamia, writing emerged from economic necessity, but Indus seals have been found in contexts ranging from marketplaces to ritual baths. Some bear animal motifs like unicorns and bulls, possibly linking them to religious or mythological traditions. Others show what might be numerical notations, implying administrative use. Without a bilingual artifact like the Rosetta Stone, or even a clear understanding of the underlying language, decipherment efforts have hit wall after wall. Computer analyzers in recent years have fueled fresh debate, with some algorithms detecting linguistic patterns and others suggesting the symbols may be non-linguistic. But here's what's extraordinary: even undeciphered, these tiny carvings speak volumes about the Indus people's ingenuity. Their seals traveled as far as Mesopotamia, where archaeologists have unearthed them in ancient Sumerian cities. The precision of the engravings, often just a few millimeters tall, reveals craftsmanship that rivals modern micro-engraving techniques. and the sheer consistency of the symbols across centuries suggests a system maintained with remarkable care. Perhaps the script wasn't meant to record poetry or laws at all, but served a unique function we haven't yet imagined, a silent language of identity, trade, or even early cryptography. As we shift our gaze eastward to China, we encounter a writing system with an unbroken lineage stretching back over 3,000 years. There, characters began as oracle bones cracked by fire and interpreted by shamans, evolving into a script that would outlast empires and inspire art across continents. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Where the Indus script remains a locked door, Chinese writing offers a living thread connecting past to present. Yet both remind us that writing isn't just about recording words, it's about preserving the human impulse to make meaning visible. Deep in the Shang dynasty's royal archives, fortune tellers etched questions onto ox shoulder blades and turtle shells. Will the harvest be bountiful? Will the king win the battle? Then applied scorching rods until the bone cracked. The pattern of fractures became divine answers, but the true miracle lay in the marks surrounding them, the earliest known Chinese characters. Unlike the alphabet spreading westward, these symbols didn't represent sounds, they captured ideas directly. A single character could embody river, mountain, or harmony, their forms evolving from vivid pictographs into the elegant strokes we recognize today. What's astonishing is how this system endured. While other ancient scripts faded or transformed beyond recognition, Chinese writing maintained an unbroken thread for over 3,000 years. Part of its resilience came from adaptability. As spoken dialects diverged across China's vast terrain, some as different as French and German, the written word remained constant. A merchant from Canton and a scholar from Beijing might struggle to converse, but they could exchange letters effortlessly. This shared script became the glue holding together a sprawling civilization, allowing emperors to administer distant provinces and poets to speak across centuries. Consider the character for horse. On Shang dynasty oracle bones, it looked unmistakably like a rearing stallion. By the Han dynasty, it had streamlined into a more abstract form, yet the essence remained. Today's simplified version still carries that legacy in its 6 strokes, but here's where Chinese gets fascinating. Combine horse with door, and you get disturbance, a horse bolting through a doorway. Pair it with a big, and it becomes gallop. This building block approach let the script grow exponentially without losing coherence. Yet mastering thousands of characters demanded years of study, creating a cultural reverence for literacy. Calligraphy wasn't just penmanship, it was high art with brushes dipped in ink capturing the writer's discipline and spirit. When Qin Shi Huang unified China in 221 BC, standardizing the script became as vital as building the Great Wall. His officials replaced regional variants with a uniform system, ensuring decrees could be read from the Yellow River to the Pearl Delta. Fast forward to the digital age, and Chinese characters face their greatest challenge yet: keyboards. How do you type a system without an alphabet? The solution reveals the script's enduring genius. Modern input methods use phonetic typing. You spell the sound ma and select the correct character from a list: horse, mother, or hemp. It's a marriage of ancient symbolism and contemporary technology, proving these intricate symbols can thrive even in an era of emojis and voice assistants. From China's logographic mastery, we journey to the jungles of Mesoamerica, where the Maya crafted a script equally brilliant and even more enigmatic. Their glyphs adorned towering pyramids, weaving together astronomy, mythology, and royal propaganda in a cascade of intricate symbols. Unlike Chinese characters, Maya writing remained a mystery until recent decades, its secrets guarded by crumbling ruins and a colonial-era ban on indigenous texts. The story of its decipherment rivals any detective novel, but that's a tale for our next chapter. High in the jungles of Central America, where howler monkeys swing through the canopy and ancient pyramids pierce the sky, the Maya perfected a writing system as intricate as their celestial calendars. Unlike the alphabets we use today, their glyphs combined logograms representing whole words with syllabic signs that captured sounds, a hybrid system capable of recording everything from royal bloodlines to the precise timing of Venus's rise. Imagine a scribe in Capon carefully incising symbols into limestone, each stroke preserving a king's victory or a priest's prophecy. These weren't mere decorations, they were the beating heart of Maya civilization, etched into towering stelae and painted onto bark paper codices folded like accordions. For centuries, these glyphs defied understanding, dismissed as primitive pictographs by early explorers. The breakthrough came when scholars realized Maya writing was phonetic, that symbols could represent syllables like ka or tu. Take the glyph for jaguar, for example. It might appear as a stylized big cat's head, but it also spelled out ba lama in syllables, proving the script's dazzling complexity. Decipherment accelerated in the 1970s and 80s, revealing historical records so precise they could pinpoint battles down to the day. One stela in Tikal even recounts a queen's strategic marriage in 512 CE, her name woven into the glyphs alongside celestial omens. Yet tragically, most of this knowledge was nearly lost forever. When Spanish missionaries arrived in the 16th century, they saw Maya texts as dangerous pagan artifacts. In 1562, Bishop Diego de Landa orchestrated the burning of thousands of codices in a single auto-da-fe, leaving only 4 known survivors: the Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier codices. Landa later wrote an account of Maya culture, ironically preserving key linguistic clues that would help modern scholars crack the script. Today, archaeologists painstakingly reconstruct lost texts from fragments and murals, like detectives reassembling a shredded manuscript. The Maya system's sophistication highlights a striking truth. Writing evolved independently in the Americas, proving humanity's universal drive to record and preserve. Now, as we cross the Atlantic back to the Mediterranean, we encounter a script that took the opposite path, one that prized simplicity over complexity. The Phoenicians, master traders of the ancient world, stripped writing down to its bare essentials, creating an alphabet so efficient it would conquer the globe. Their innovation wasn't in capturing the world's richness, but in unlocking the power of accessibility. Where Maya glyphs required lifelong study, the Phoenician system could be learned in days, a revolution as transformative as the printing press. The bustling ports of ancient Phoenicia didn't just trade in purple dye and cedar wood, they trafficked in something far more enduring: the power of simplicity. Picture a merchant in the city of Byblos, scratching letters onto a clay tablet to record a shipment. Unlike the hundreds of cuneiform signs or the intricate hieroglyphs of Egypt, his script needed only 22 characters, each representing a consonant. No complex symbols, no layers of meaning, just a straightforward system designed for speed and clarity. This was the Phoenician alphabet, and its impact would eclipse even the grandest cargo ships sailing the Mediterranean. What made this system revolutionary wasn't just its efficiency, but its adaptability. The Phoenicians were master navigators, their ships threading through ports from Cyprus to Carthage. Wherever they traded, their alphabet traveled too, a tool so intuitive that neighboring cultures couldn't resist tweaking it for their own tongues. The Greeks, for instance, encountered these characters around the 9th century BCE and spotted a flaw: the script lacked vowels. So they repurposed unused Phoenician letters to represent sounds like A and E. birthing the first true alphabet capable of capturing every nuance of speech. But the genius of the Phoenician system lay in its democratizing effect. While mastering cuneiform or hieroglyphs required years of apprenticeship, their alphabet could be learned in days. Imagine a farmer in ancient Lebanon teaching his child to write with just a handful of symbols, a radical shift from scribble elites to everyday literacy. This accessibility fueled its spread like wildfire. Aramean traders adopted it, carrying it eastward where it evolved into the Arabic script. The Etruscans brought it to Italy, where Rome would later refine it into the Latin letters you're reading now. Even Hebrew, the language of the Bible, traces its letters back to those same Phoenician shapes. Yet history nearly erased their contribution. The Phoenicians themselves left few monuments, their parchment records long crumbled to dust. We piece together their legacy through pottery shards and stone inscriptions, like the sarcophagus of King Ahiram, bearing one of the oldest known Phoenician texts. Unlike the boastful carvings of Assyrian kings or the ornate tomb paintings of pharaohs, these inscriptions are pragmatic, trade agreements, dedications, funeral markers. They reflect a culture more interested in commerce than conquest, whose greatest conquest was accidental, an alphabet so versatile it became the invisible backbone of half the world's writing systems. As we follow this script's journey to Greece, we'll witness another leap forward, the moment writing stopped being just a tool for record-keeping and became an instrument of philosophy, drama, and democracy. The Greeks didn't just borrow the Phoenician alphabet, they unlocked its poetic soul, transforming it into a vehicle for Homer's epics and Plato's dialogues. And that's where our story takes its next turn. The Greeks didn't just adopt the Phoenician alphabet, they reinvented it, turning a pragmatic tool for merchants into a precision instrument for poetry and thought. Picture a scribe in 8th century BC Athens, scratching symbols onto papyrus. The Phoenician letters he used lacked vowels, forcing readers to fill in gaps like solving a puzzle. But Greek, with its melodic cadence and complex inflections, demanded clarity, so they repurposed unused Phoenician characters, turning the guttural aleph into alpha, the breathing he into epsilon. Suddenly, words could be captured exactly as they sounded, unlocking new possibilities for storytelling and debate. This wasn't just a tweak, it was a revolution. For the first time, the rhythm of spoken language could be preserved flawlessly. Homer's epics, once passed down orally, were now fixed in writing, their dactylic hexameter intact. Philosophers like Plato could construct intricate arguments without ambiguity, each vowel ensuring ideas landed precisely. Even scientific texts gained rigor. Hippocrates' medical observations or Archimedes' geometric proofs relied on a script capable of nuance. The alphabet became a mirror for the Greek mind, fluid enough for Sappho's lyricism, yet exact enough for Euclid's axioms. But the true genius lay in accessibility. Unlike hieroglyphs or cuneiform, which required years of study, the Greek alphabet could be mastered in weeks. This democratized knowledge, fueling the rise of Athenian democracy, where citizens debated laws inscribed on stone. Theatergoers read play scripts, merchants drafted contracts, students copied Homer's verses on wax tablets. Writing ceased to be the domain of priests and scribes. It became a civic tool, as vital as the agora or the amphitheater. As Greek culture radiated outward, so did its script. Alexander the Great's conquests carried it to Egypt, Persia, and India, where it morphed into Coptic and inspired Brahmi. But its most consequential adaptation came further west, where the Etruscans passed it to the Romans. They streamlined the letters further, chiseling them into monuments and legal codes. From those chisel marks would emerge the alphabet you're reading now, a direct descendant of that Greek innovation. So next time you jot a note or type an email, Tip your pen to those ancient scribes who turned vowels into vessels for eternity. Now let's follow those letters as they march toward their next transformation, etched into the marble of Rome, where practicality would meet imperial ambition. The Romans didn't just write history, they standardized it, crafting a script so enduring it would outlast their empire by millennia. The Romans didn't just conquer lands, they standardized the way we write. Marching legions carried more than swords and shields. They brought a script so streamlined it would outlast their empire by millennia. Picture a stonecutter in 1st century Rome, chiseling letters into a triumphal arch. The characters he used weren't invented there. They'd traveled from Phoenician traders to Greek colonists before reaching the Italian peninsula. But the Romans refined them into something revolutionary, crisp, angular letters designed for efficiency. No flourishes, no ambiguity, just the Latin alphabet, a tool as practical as the roads they built to span continents. What made this script so enduring? Start with its simplicity. The Romans pared down the Greek alphabet to 23 letters, each with distinct shapes that stood out, carved in stone or inked on parchment. Compare the fluid curves of Greek to the stark geometry of Latin, every stroke optimized for legibility. A Roman clerk could dash off a tax record with the same clarity as a senator drafting a speech. This versatility let the alphabet serve everything from imperial decrees to graffiti scrawled on Pompeii's walls. Cave Canem warns one famous inscription, "Beware of the dog," proving even ordinary citizens used it daily. But the real catalyst was empire. As Rome expanded, so did its writing system. Provincial administrators from Britain to North Africa relied on Latin script to record laws, census data, and military orders. Local elites adopted it to navigate Roman bureaucracy, while merchants used it for contracts spanning the Mediterranean. Unlike cuneiform or hieroglyphs, which required specialized training, Latin's phonetic consistency made it accessible. A trader in Gaul could learn it as easily as a scholar in Alexandria. By the time Rome fell in 476 CE, its alphabet had taken root across Europe, waiting for new powers to carry it forward. The Church became Latin's unexpected guardian. Medieval monks painstakingly copied classical texts in scriptoria, preserving not just words but letter forms. Charlemagne's scribes then perfected Carolingian minuscule, a rounded, lowercase style that improved readability. This innovation laid the groundwork for Gutenberg's printing press centuries later, when movable type demanded uniformity. That's why today, whether you're typing in English, Spanish, or Vietnamese, you're using descendants of those Roman letters. Even the W, added later to represent Germanic sounds, follows the same logical design. Yet as Latin script marched westward, another writing system was flourishing eastward, one that would shape empires from Baghdad to Cordoba. Arabic script, with its flowing calligraphy, wasn't just a way to record language but an art form intertwined with faith and identity. While Rome's letters prized functionality, Arabic's elegance turned every page into a visual symphony, and that's where our journey turns next. Arabic script didn't just convey words, it turned language into visual poetry. Imagine a master calligrapher in 9th century Baghdad, dipping a reed pen into ink, his hand moving with the precision of a musician. Each stroke wasn't merely a letter but a dance, elongated lines flowing like rivers, dots placed like stars in a night sky. This wasn't mere writing, it was devotion made visible. Emerging from the Nabatean script in the 4th century CE, Arabic's elegant curves were perfectly suited to the rhythms of the Quran, where beauty and meaning intertwined. What makes Arabic calligraphy unique is its inseparable bond with faith. Unlike the utilitarian Latin alphabet or even Chinese characters prized for their artistry, Arabic script became sacred the moment it transcribed divine revelation. Early Muslims believed the Quran's words were too holy to be illustrated with human figures, so calligraphy became the primary artistic expression. Mosques glowed with gold leaf verses, pottery bore proverbs in delicate script, and even coins carried the profession of faith in meticulously crafted letters. The script wasn't just read, it was revered. But here's the twist: Arabic didn't stay confined to one language or culture. As Islam spread from Spain to Sumatra, the script adapted like water, taking the shape of its container. Persian scribes added 4 letters to capture sounds like P, birthing the graceful Nastaliq style where words slanted like wind-blown grass. In India, Urdu wove Arabic letters with Hindi vocabulary, creating a linguistic tapestry. Ottoman calligraphers elevated it further, with masters like Sheikh Hamdullah refining styles like Thulath, its towering letters dominating mosque domes, or Naskh, the clear, readable script used for centuries in Quranic manuscripts. The tools themselves were works of art. Calligraphers carved their pens from reeds, calibrating the tip's width to the thickness of each stroke. Ink recipes guarded like state secrets mixed soot with rosewater or saffron for golden hues. Paper, introduced from China after the 8th century Battle of Tollas, replaced parchment, absorbing ink with a crispness that made every curve shimmer. Apprentices spent years grinding ink and practicing single letters before earning the right to transcribe sacred texts. Yet for all its beauty, Arabic script faced a modern challenge: the typewriter. How could rigid keys capture flowing ligatures? The solution came in the 1940s when designers like Habib Sakaut created modular typefaces preserving calligraphic grace. Today, digital fonts continue this legacy, proving that even in the age of emojis, the allure of these timeless letters endures. From the rhythmic dance of Arabic calligraphy, we turn eastward to India, where writing took a radically different path. Here, scripts didn't just record language, they embodied cosmic order. The Brahmi script, emerging around the 3rd century BCE, arranged letters not randomly but by vocal mechanics, vowels first, then consonants grouped by where the tongue touches the mouth. This wasn't merely practical, it mirrored the Hindu belief in sound as the universe's foundation. As we'll see, India's scripts became more than communication, they were a sacred science. Beneath the shade of ancient bodhi trees in India, a script emerged that would shape the spiritual and literary landscape of half a continent. Brahmi, with its precise curves and angular strokes, wasn't just a way to record language, it was a mirror of cosmic order. Picture a monk in the 3rd century BCE etching prayers onto palm leaves. Each character followed a logical arrangement: vowels first, then consonants grouped by where the tongue touched the mouth, gutturals like ka, palatals like cha, dentals like ta. This wasn't arbitrary. It reflected the Hindu belief that sound itself was sacred, the vibration that birthed the universe. What set Brahmi apart was its adaptability. As Buddhism and trade spread from the Gangetic Plains to Sri Lanka and beyond, the script morphed to fit new languages and materials. In the dry heat of Rajasthan, scribes carved it into stone edicts for Emperor Ashoka's moral proclamations. Further south, Tamil scholars streamlined its characters into a flowing script perfectly suited for poetry on palm leaf manuscripts. Over centuries, these regional variations blossomed into distinct scripts: the elegant loops of Bengali, the geometric precision of Devanagari, which now writes Hindi and Sanskrit, and the rounded curves of Sinhalese in Sri Lanka. Yet all traced their lineage back to Brahma's original blueprint. The script's influence didn't stop at India's borders. Sailors and monks carried it across the Bay of Bengal, where it inspired Khmer inscriptions at Angkor Wat and Javanese carvings in Borobudur. Even Thai and Tibetan scripts owe a debt to Brahma's design principles. But here's the paradox: despite its vast reach, Brahmi itself vanished from daily use by the 5th century CE, replaced by its own descendants. Like a river splitting into delta channels, it gave life to new forms while its original course faded into history. Now, let's journey from the sunlit temples of Asia to the misty fjords of Scandinavia, where an entirely different writing system carved its mark literally. Norse runes weren't just letters, they were symbols steeped in magic and mystery, etched into weapons and amulets to invoke gods or curse enemies. Where Brahmi flowed with spiritual harmony, runes crackled with primal power, each stroke a potential spell waiting to be unleashed. Carved into weathered standing stones and the hilts of swords, runes carried more than messages, they thrummed with power. The Vikings and Germanic tribes who used them from the 2nd century CE didn't just see these angular symbols as letters. They believed each stroke could summon storms, heal wounds, or curse enemies. Picture a Norse shaman etching the Alges rune, shaped like a person reaching skyward into an amulet for protection, or a warrior carving Tyr as the spear-shaped rune of the god Tyr before battle. Even everyday objects like combs and fishing weights bore runic inscriptions, blurring the line between writing and incantation. What made runes unique was their dual nature. The oldest system, the Elder Fathok, contained 24 characters, each with a name and mystical association. The Fehu rune meant cattle but also symbolized wealth and prosperity. Raidho depicted a wheel, invoking both travel and cosmic order. This wasn't mere poetry. Archaeologists have found rune stones where letters are deliberately scrambled or repeated, suggesting ritual encryption. The famous Björketorp rune stone in Sweden warns, "I conceal here the secret of mighty runes," followed by a curse so potent that excavations nearby halted for fear of unleashing it. Yet by the end of the Middle Ages, runes had largely vanished from daily use. Why? Christianity's spread played a role as churches discouraged pagan scripts, but the deeper reason lay in practicality. Runes were designed for carving. Their straight lines avoided the curves that splinter wood, but as ink and parchment replaced chisels, smoother scripts like the Latin alphabet dominated. The final blow came when Viking settlements adopted Christianity. The Roskilde Cathedral in Denmark, built in the 12th century, features Latin inscriptions, not runes. Only in remote pockets like Gotland did runic writing persist into the 19th century, a fading whisper of Odin's legendary sacrifice, hanging himself on Yggdrasil for 9 nights to seize the rune's secrets. Now we shift from the misty fjords to the arid hills of the Levant, where another script carried divine weight. Hebrew writing, with its squared letters and unbroken lineage, didn't just record laws and psalms, it became a sacred vessel, preserving a language resurrected from antiquity. Unlike runes, which faded with their polytheistic world, Hebrew's story is one of endurance against all odds. Hebrew letters held their breath for centuries. Carved into ancient temple walls and parchment scrolls, these angular symbols once preserved the Torah and royal decrees of Judean kings. But after the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BC, Hebrew as a spoken language began to fade, replaced by Aramaic in daily life. The script itself, though, never truly disappeared. It clung to sacred texts like a whisper waiting to be amplified. Fast forward to late 19th century Jerusalem, and something extraordinary happened. Hebrew stirred back to life, not just as a liturgical language, but as the vibrant tongue of newspapers, street signs, and schoolyards. How does a writing system survive 2 millennia of silence? The secret lies in unbroken reverence. Even during the diaspora, Jewish communities from Morocco to Poland kept Hebrew alive in prayer and study. Scribes meticulously copied biblical texts, preserving every stroke of the 22-letter alphabet. The letters themselves evolved. Ancient Paleo-Hebrew's pictorial symbols streamlined into the square script we recognize today, influenced by Aramaic during the Second Temple period. But the core remained unchanged. Aleph still began the sequence, Tav still ended it, each consonant carrying the weight of divine commandments and poetic psalms. Then came Eliezer ben Yehuda, a Lithuanian-born linguist obsessed with an audacious idea. In 1881, he declared that Jews returning to their ancestral homeland should speak Hebrew not just in synagogues but in markets and homes. He invented thousands of modern words from ice cream, glida to bicycle, orphaneum, compiling the first modern Hebrew dictionary. Critics scoffed, but Ben Yehuda's family became living test cases. His son, Itamar, famously grew up as the first native Hebrew speaker in centuries. Newspapers like Hieroglyphs adopted the revived language, and by the time Israel declared independence in 1948, Hebrew was its official tongue. What's astonishing is how seamlessly the ancient script adapted. Hebrew had no letters for a J or CH sounds common in European languages, so the Academy of the Hebrew language repurposed underused characters, turning gimel with a dot into J and kaf into CH. Even the vowel system, traditionally indicated by dots and dashes below consonants, expanded to accommodate everyday speech. Today, Hebrew's resurrection stands as linguistics' most successful revival, a script that bridged King David's era to smartphone texts. From the Mediterranean, we turn northeast to the snow-dusted landscapes of 9th century Moravia, where two Byzantine brothers crafted an alphabet to save souls. Cyril and Methodius's Cyrillic script wasn't just a writing system, it was a cultural lifeline, designed to translate scripture for Slavic converts. Unlike Hebrew's unbroken lineage, Cyrillic was born from deliberate invention, yet it would come to define empires from Russia to Serbia. Its story begins not with kings or merchants, but with missionaries holding parchment and quills. In the frost-dusted monasteries of 9th century Moravia, two brothers from Thessaloniki embarked on a linguistic miracle. Cyril and Methodius weren't just missionaries, they were linguistic architects, tasked with an impossible challenge: create a script capable of capturing the rich sounds of Old Church Slavonic for converts who had never seen the Bible in their own tongue. What emerged was the Glagolitic alphabet, a swirling constellation of crosses and curves that looked like nothing else in Europe. But its younger sibling, Cyrillic, named in Cyril's honor after his death, would become the true heir to their vision, shaping languages from the Black Sea to the Bering Strait. What set Cyrillic apart was its elegant compromise between Greek precision and Slavic needs. While Latin script had spread west with Rome's legions, the Byzantine Empire's influence flowed northward. Cyril's team took Greek letters as their foundation: Omega, Phi, Psi, but added original characters for distinct Slavic sounds. The nasal Cyrillic letter 4-6 big U's, the guttural G, and the rolling gave the alphabet a distinctly Slavic musicality. Compare this to the Latin alphabet's struggle with Slavic languages. Even today, think of Polish's consonant clusters like SZCZ or Czech's Hachek accents, and Cyrillic's tailored design shines. The script's destiny intertwined with empire and faith. When Prince Vladimir of Kiev converted to Orthodox Christianity in 988, he imported not just religion but its linguistic vessel. Cyrillic became the medium for medieval masterpieces like the Primary Chronicle, tracing Slavic history, and the poetic Lay of Igor's Campaign. Even as dialects diverged, Bulgarian softening, Russian hardening consonants, the script adapted. Peter the Great streamlined Cyrillic in 1700 into the civil script, ditching archaic letters to modernize Russia. Yet some resisted. The backward-facing Ya became a nationalist symbol during Napoleon's invasion, its shape echoing a defiant hand on hip. Today, Cyrillic's reach astonishes. Serbian uses it alongside Latin, flipping between scripts like bilingual chefs switching knives. Mongolian, written vertically before Soviet influence, now runs Cyrillic horizontally. Even space bears its mark. The first artificial satellite, Sputnik, broadcast its beeps in Cyrillic code, yet for all its spread, the alphabet remains deeply cultural. The letter G resembles a beetle, inspiring Nabokov's nickname for his most frustrating novel. D mirrors a Greek delta but carries the weight of dam, home, in Russian sentimental poetry. From the snow-flecked birch forests of Russia, we leap across continents to an island nation where writing became an art of layered meaning. Japan didn't just adopt Chinese characters, it transformed them into a trio of scripts that dance across pages like brushstrokes in a Zen garden. Kanji's intricate symbols, hiragana's flowing curves, and katakana's angular simplicity don't just write language, they perform it. Japan's writing system unfolds like a meticulously painted scroll, one where three distinct scripts dance across the page in perfect harmony. At first glance, it might seem overwhelming. Complex kanji characters borrowed from China, flowing hiragana curves, and angular katakana symbols all sharing the same sentence. But this intricate mosaic isn't just functional, it's a living testament to Japan's cultural adaptability. Picture a Tokyo cafe menu where Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter, kuhai, coffee appears in katakana. Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter, oishii, delicious in hiragana, and Chinese letter, basin, roasting in kanji. Each script plays a specific role, like instruments in an orchestra. Kanji arrived from China around the 5th century, bringing with them the weight of Buddhist sutras and Confucian classics. These characters, often representing whole words or ideas, became the backbone of formal writing. But Japanese grammar, with its particles and verb conjugations, didn't fit neatly into Chinese logograms. Enter hiragana, developed by court ladies in the Heian period as a graceful shorthand for native words and grammatical markers. Murasaki Shikibu's Tale of Genji, the world's first novel, flowed entirely from this script's brushstrokes. Meanwhile, Buddhist monks created katakana to annotate Chinese texts, its crisp lines perfect for emphasizing foreign terms or onomatopoeia. What's brilliant is how these scripts collaborate. Kanji conveys meaning efficiently. The character, Chinese letter, instantly signals mountain, while hiragana wraps around it like connective tissue, indicating verb tenses or pronouns. Katakana, meanwhile, handles loanwords like Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter, terebai, TV, or scientific terms. This division isn't rigid. Poets might choose hiragana for its softness, or manga artists use katakana to imply a robotic voice. Even children's books play with this interplay, starting with hiragana-only texts before layering in kanji like stepping stones to literacy, yet mastering the system demands years. Educated Japanese learn over 2,000 kanji, each with multiple readings. The character, Chinese letter, can be pronounced 7 ways depending on context. It's a linguistic tightrope walk, but one that rewards with nuance. Writers can pun across scripts, and calligraphers blend them into visual art. When a single kanji like Chinese letter, depression, contains 29 strokes, while hiragana's simplest character is just 1 curl, the system becomes a metaphor for balance, complexity, and simplicity intertwined. Now let's journey to a peninsula where writing took the opposite approach. While Japan layered scripts, Korea's scholars engineered something radical, Hangle, an alphabet so ingenious it's been called the most scientific writing system on Earth. Where kanji required a lifetime to master, Hangle was designed to be learned in a morning. Its origin story isn't just about linguistics, it's a revolution carved in consonants and vowels. born from a king's determination to empower his people. In the misty halls of 15th century Korea's royal palace, King Sejong the Great wrestled with a problem that had plagued his people for generations. Literacy was a luxury reserved for the elite, those with years to spare memorizing thousands of complex Chinese characters. Farmers, merchants, even soldiers, most couldn't read the laws that governed them or write letters to distant families. So Sejong, a ruler as brilliant as he was compassionate, did something radical. He assembled a team of scholars and invented an entirely new writing system from scratch. Not borrowed, not adapted, designed, the result was Hangle, an alphabet so ingeniously simple that legend claims anyone could learn it before the morning rice cooled. What made Hangle revolutionary wasn't just its accessibility, but its scientific precision. Each of its 24 letters mimics the shape of the mouth when producing its sound. The consonant Hangle Konien Enus N resembles the tongue touching the roof of the mouth, while Hangle Komium Enus M mirrors pressed lips. Vowels like Hangle Ka Enus A and Hangle Ka Enus O are built from horizontal and vertical lines representing heaven, earth, and humanity, a nod to Confucian philosophy. Even the way letters combine into syllable blocks reflects speech rhythms, stacking like building blocks to form words visually as cohesive as their spoken counterparts. This wasn't just writing, it was linguistic engineering. Resisting China's cultural dominance took courage. The Korean aristocracy, steeped in Confucian tradition, initially dismissed Hangle as morning letters, something you could learn in a day but lacking the prestige of classical Chinese. Some scholars even petitioned Sejong's successor to ban it, fearing widespread literacy would destabilize social hierarchies, but the king had anticipated this. He positioned Hangle not as a replacement for Chinese characters, but as a complement, a tool for translating Confucian classics into the vernacular. Soon, Buddhist texts, medical manuals, and folk tales poured forth in Hangle, creating a parallel literary universe where scholars and peasants could meet on common ground. Centuries later, Hangle's legacy is undeniable. During Japan's occupation in the early 20th century, the script became a rallying point for Korean identity, proof of the nation's intellectual independence. Today, it's celebrated with a national holiday, its design principles so intuitive that UNESCO awards a literacy prize in King Sejong's name. Yet for all its modernity, Hangle retains its soul. Type Kosatang Enis Sarang love on a smartphone, and you're still tracing those 15th century strokes, each curve a bridge between past and present. From Korea's meticulously crafted script, we cross continents to Africa, where writing systems tell a different story, one of innovation often overshadowed by colonial narratives. Long before European contact, the Nsabidi symbols of Nigeria's Ek society conveyed laws and legends through intricate glyphs, while Ethiopia's Jazz script gave voice to an ancient Christian kingdom. These weren't primitive pictographs, they were sophisticated systems born from cultures with rich literary traditions. The story of writing isn't just cuneiform and calligraphy, it's a global tapestry still being unraveled. Africa's writing systems are often painted as footnotes in the story of literacy, overshadowed by the towering narratives of cuneiform and hieroglyphs. But venture into the highlands of Ethiopia, where ancient monasteries guard leather-bound manuscripts, and you'll find Jazz, a script that defied time. Developed around the 4th century CE, Jazz began as the language of the Aksumite Empire, its angular letters chiseled into stone stelae taller than giraffes. But here's what's extraordinary. When Jazz ceased to be a spoken language, its script lived on, becoming the vessel for Amharic and Tigrinya. Picture a priest copying the Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's epic of Solomon and Sheba. his pen tracing letters that have carried sacred texts for over 1600 years. Unlike Latin, which fractured into regional scripts, Ge'ez remained almost unchanged, a testament to its role as the sacred script of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Meanwhile, in the dense forests of southeastern Nigeria, the etched secret society wielded a different kind of power, ensabidi. These intricate symbols, some geometric, others resembling stylized figures, weren't just written but performed. A single ensabidi glyph could convey a proverb, a legal decree, or even a warning scratched onto a tree trunk. Archaeologists have found them on pottery shards dating back to at least 500 CE, but their full lexicon remains elusive. Why? Because ensabidi was deliberately esoteric, taught only to initiates who guarded its meanings like state secrets. Colonial powers dismissed it as primitive pictography, but scholars now recognize its sophistication, a system where a spiral might symbolize eternity, and interlocking circles could denote marriage. The fate of these scripts mirrors the forces that shaped Africa itself. Ge'ez survived because it was entwined with religion and monarchy, protected by mountain fortresses and monastic scribes. Ensabidi, though resilient, faded under colonial pressure, its teachings driven underground. Yet traces persist. Modern Nigerian artists revive its symbols in murals, and Ethiopic fonts thrive digitally, proving these scripts aren't relics but living threads in a global tapestry. Now, let's cross the Atlantic to the Appalachian Mountains of the early 19th century, where a Cherokee silversmith named Sequoia achieved the unimaginable. Without knowing how to read any language, he single-handedly invented a syllabary so intuitive that within months, thousands of Cherokee became literate. His script didn't borrow from English or Latin, it sprang wholly from his genius, a grid of characters where each symbol represented a syllable, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. By 1825, the Cherokee Nation was printing newspapers in their own script, a beacon of resistance against forced assimilation. Sequoia's syllabary wasn't just letters, it was armor for a culture under siege, proving that writing could be both a weapon and a gift. Sequoia's syllabary didn't just give the Cherokee people a way to write, it handed them a weapon against cultural erasure. Picture a silversmith in the early 1800s, hunched over deer hide by firelight, carving symbols that had never existed before. Sequoia had no formal education, no knowledge of English or Latin script, yet he spent 12 years obsessively refining a system where each of 85 characters represented a syllable in the Cherokee language. When he finally unveiled it to tribal leaders, they were skeptical until he proved its power by having his young daughter read back messages she'd never heard aloud. Within months, thousands of Cherokee became literate, passing notes in markets and teaching each other under trees. This wasn't just innovation, it was defiance. At a time when the U.S. government was systematically dismantling indigenous cultures, Sequoia's script became a lifeline, preserving laws, prayers, and stories that might have vanished. Then came the printing press, the game changer. In 1828, the Cherokee Nation acquired one and cast type for Sequoia's syllabary, launching the Cherokee Phoenix, the first Native American newspaper. Suddenly, news that once traveled by word of mouth could spread across mountains. The paper printed everything from tribal council decisions to biblical translations, its pages a mosaic of Cherokee and English columns. Subscribers as far as Europe marveled at this thriving literary culture, a stark contrast to the vanishing Indian stereotype pushed by settlers, even more remarkable. The syllabary's adaptability. Cherokee speakers could now write letters, record medical remedies, or draft contracts without relying on outsiders. It was autonomy inked onto paper. Yet this golden age was short-lived. The same year the Phoenix printed its first edition, gold was discovered on Cherokee land. By 1838, forced removal along the Trail of Tears scattered communities and silenced presses. But Sequoia's script refused to die. Hidden in pockets of resistance like the remote Snowbird Mountains where some Cherokee evaded removal, the Syllabary survived, scratched onto birch bark and whispered in schoolhouses. Today, it's experiencing a renaissance, taught in immersion schools and glowing on smartphone keyboards. The Cherokee Nation even launched a language preservation app, ensuring that every and la carries its legacy on at its digital ledger. From unsolved hat matel erp, the story reminds us that writing isn't just about communication, it's about sovereignty. And as what ton from the Appalachian forests, this buzzing telegraph was of 19th century, while saha anadh revelat pan and writing was about shrunk's world. Masaka didn't just send messages, it pulsed them through the air, proving that words could travel faster than hus shops a oven's printed page. This age of instant communication was dunning, and at did change writing kavke. This quat klatke of matel erp an a 15th century German workshop signaled a revelat pan verlad than any bet cry. Johannes Gutenberg didn't just invent a machine and fatten fatter. He built a tudwov that would swamp this mud-pavel world with unk and others. Pictures first printed bubbed pmudging from his press, arch-crisp black luck a dunterkilt. This lust a marect of precision that scrubs couldn't match on a luff arm of luck. Buffer Gutenberg dicks were raw as Yonikans coupled behend and monostuk sculpture. Wa a sangla manuscript might cost a thumb as yellow wadges after. Knowledge become a con, so the masses could funnily offered. What mud's printing press a transformative wasn't just spud art, was standardization. Suddenly, a scholar in Paris and a merchant in Venice could read identical copies of some text, allemanetungs hours that cropped on, eti handwritten manuscripts. Scientific skavk has no longer weathered an asalatpan. Galileo's stud charts and Vezelpus's anatomy sketches spread across yard up on wax, not decades. Mutton ladkes nantafav thusses, which might have gathered dust on one church da become pamphlets flooding cities, fjolungs reformatpan. This press doesn't just distribute words, it amplified them on etim movements. Yet thus revelatpan had its arenas. Gutenberg himself did unfonnenged obscurita, has inventpans patunged unrollest. Printer's son first censorship from kongs and pop terrified of unregulated others, ludungt, Benedict lusts and clandestine presses hidden and cellars. And while literacy sad, it wasn't instantaneous. Many other printed works were stolen Latin, this language of Alatus. This role democratization come when printers began publishing in vernacular tongues, English, German, French, letting other people read for themselves rather than relying on press and nibblers to interpret. As this press's influence rippled outward, another quat innovation was brung. This nod for spud and rockadung spatch, cut reporters and journalists struggled. Cup up with love dubak, javung rust, shorthand systems like Samuel Tuller's Utton Saxton method, were covered lands and dots could capture spakas avapwad. Those weren't just abbreviatpans, there were linguistic sprinters, compressing language on its slack symbols that rust alongside thought. Tudder's stenograph stole yours descendant systems, the cupboards tapping at cards of letters on a songler struck. Wall students scrubbed lucked, your nut on Hubbard shorthand, prof that oven on a digital udger, is quest for faster rutting undars. From inkad erp to latnung fast natatpan, the story of rutting cups pvolvung, but perhaps this must statlung transformatpan las ahad, as puxels and thus recognition read duff on what it mans to rut at all. This tolls mud changer, but this human impulse rumans to pan done flutting thoughts before the vanish luck stum from a cup. cut rapatas tapang at stunninap mushens, mat some wolds apart from composers scrubbling musical nak, but both rolle and specialized rutting systems bzugnad for spud and precision. Tuck stenography, those rapid for construct and random. Modern stenograph is just coded cupboards were multipla cause processed simultaneously represent syllabs a whole words, compressing spachan et a consas struck. A songler flawed matpon mat capchk, objectpon sustone, a witness testimony, translating spoken drama on it efficient shorthand, thus as not just about tapping fast, it is about stelling language on it that's asensa, much like musical natatpan tan symphonas on it dots and lands on our stuff. Musical natatpan itself is a marvel of symbolic efficiency. A songler troubler cloth tells this plow which 5 lands correspond, which not Wall dynamic makings like fata, a panacima conver voluma without a sangla written word. Renaissance composers used numbers sampler squagglers above lyrics, guttered chanters, of cassanteras, this pvolvad an, it is popsa system one not tada, were aquatinats followed an oval and stam communicat both patch and dartpan universally. Wathcart is a jazz musician sat rudding a chat an orchestra interpreting a baroque fugue, thus shod visual language bridges gaps but one languages and errors. Yet this must reduct transformatpan come with digital udger. Alle program is first a paradox, how mak mushens understand human rutting. This answer was asker, a numerical code representing letters as banner sequences. Suddenly, avop kustrak become a strong of ones and zaras. A digital shorthand far removed from Cuneiform's wadges a calligraphy's flupshes. Then come Unicode, expanding this palette to include a pmudgy, ancient scripts, and even extant languages like Lanaba. Tada, one you tuxta putz, a slus pmudgy a app on Mandarin, you're leveraging a system that can uncode nulla avop ruttung system of invented. His latest frontier. Productive text in Vastaspach tells that Bappas tapping altogether, swap cupboards gus whole words from funga trolls, while our transcribes spatch with our accuracy. Yet even as archaeology pvolvers, this car challenge Romans the Samazot, was for Mesopotamian accountants, hat capchkithat klola, quakla, and undangla. This tolls mud changer, but this human nud, rucked, shah, and preserver ak wads psasts wathka achad an kla in kad an pachment, a glang an a scrun. Blankang kassa an a smartphone scrun, mat sam a wold owa from rad stellars of ancient Mesopotamia, yet tada's digital communication as fajbngats an revelet pan an hawarat. Emojis, those tiny, vibrant icons aren't just decorative flupshes. The falling gaps left by text in nobility, convert ton a gesture. A sampler thumbs up can replace a paragraph of reassurance, while a skull pmudgy delivers dudpan humor an awa words mat fumbler. But this isn't just about efficiency. One Assyrian refuger used a strong of pmudges a plan, a has. A question mocked ask volunteers about resettlement had demonstrated something profound. Visual symbols can transcend language barriers, much like alle pictographs did 5,000 years ago. Goff and mamas tuck this fatke, compressing complex matpons on it sharp moments. A lappung clap of a dramatic mava sana might express exasperate pan batk than any sentence, while a word mama templat. Thunk abstracted buffrand, a man yolong at a cat, bakamos a commune shorthand for relative experpansers. Even abbreviatpans like lol, tabach have pvolved beyond laziness, dak linguistic adaptations, this passive digital laugh were bravata askvavel. This our inner, those innovations aka ancient challenges. Just as Cuneiform scrubs simplified pictographs for spud, would stelling language on it its most patent fragments. Yet skeptics argue this isn't avalat panat histaka, the one other generatpan lazungs nance of pras, of conversatpans rudisat hieroglyphic exchanges. But Hasta suggests otherwise, avap rutung ravalatpan from Phoenician trudkis stromlanang cuneiform, Juttenbugs prastenket azong spelling spakad samala faz. This truth as digital communication isn't raplasung traditional rutung, as expendungs tolkut, academic papas stole dumb and precision, novels wava intricate narratives, and legal contracts ruckwa unflanchung clarity. But unspasses but one, while humanity thrives on spontaneity and kanakpan, pmudges and guff os mudden de kav pantungs, ra a moderate and yon a vaseli uncasted. As were marvel at those innovations rumumke, some scrapped stole gad the sacrats facila, from Indus Valley's kraptak symbols to rungarunga, this undeciphered glyphs of Asta Island, those puzzlers rumundas that rutung an ani fum, as ultimately abats unyoldung human bzar tubby uncasted across distanza, and ovens limits of a kaan imagination. Some rutung systems rough is to scrunda the sacrats, tak lana this kraptak scrupt scratch on it a clad tablets bus manons of ancient krat and 1800 besida. Unluckets dasendant lana ba deciphered ans nanton fafters as an alla form of gruk, lana as language roman stubkenla apak. Archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of these tablets, mustla inventory lusts from palace sturums, but without a belongwill ka lak this Rosetta stun, avop atom tad translatpon crumblers lux fredged klathak rutten an. The symbols tantellers are trying mat man grun, a fashtik to dunat shop, but without nang's unclang language at his luck trangt, solver a crossword puzzduns duck. Then there's rongarunga, this enigmatic glyphs covered on, etu to dun tablets by Asta Alans rup and nai poplar. Ibskavkad ans atten saxters, there's intricate symbols, buds, celestid budders, humanad figures, Appa an olknatung lands that ravasa durakpan lak a platanang sol, ak nak kol ravasa bastrafadan. Ala ya dapan visitors asimadat was rutung, but modern scholars dub at wadkatis transcript a fum of prata rutung yazard for ratuals, this tragedy. Nola ol flant rungarunga rudders parashad an nantanth santra slav ruds a apidemics, tuckings cut, thus paused the groves, tada, only 20 socks fredge tablets givava, the messages frozen and silent splunk. What mock the scrupt so resistant decipherment, fast asilatpan, unlak cuneiform a hieroglyphs which pvolved alongside neighboring systems, lana a and rungarunga develop on relative seclusion, loving few linguistic cousins for comparison. Second, bravata must give avong exemplars a shut administrative texts a ceremonial in scrappans, lackings narrative depth nudded, dubtucked patkins. And third is brutal truth of Hasta, conquest, desires, and cult, yod presida often savkis thread but one ancient symbols, and those hamat interpret them. Yet the very master holds a merit, rutung's cult, yod power. There's undeciphered scraps romandas that rutung as and just about communicationat is about identity. This manans chose to press the thoughts on it a clow rather than rolla on mamala. This rup and nigh covered the rudan tablets while the Ellen's ecosystem collapse as of ducklang wawaha. Oven silent the symbols testified humanity's unshucked urge to love a marks that outlast us. Na kansadka this paradox, this mawa duckard, this mawa rollers how much rutung shopk, and as shepherd by the societies that kratat. Jonas kaupt his mararad confusion adols of Ada, Arabak scrupt fusud with Islamic art, Cherokee Syllabary become an act of resistance, Avup struck Avapan, Avup chusd unstun, carries his fingerprints of culture. Size were closed thus Jonna through rumumke, Ratung as ant just a toll, atis this vas of savalas at pans waspang across santaras in vatangast, lasan. Scrapped as ma then a toll atis this hut but avaculture. One's Assyrians covered Cuneiform an etikla, a Tibetan monks brushed pras and flang scrapped, the want just rakadung words. Though were achung the world, ya an etipamanans, wavung language with adanta to sa tatla that lazung one tid unraved this other. Kansad kes Aramak language, once lungia a franca of umpaz, nakapt Oliver Munla and liturgical chants by a handful of communities. Scrapped descendant of Phoenician letters, klangst, skavovel and Sumerian churches and scholarly texts, a gust of this bustling Makkat's word, once dominated trad from Jerusalem to Persia. One scrapped fads tuck with it, nouns as this cover of a luck that pvakad mountain packs for one poplar, as dat that distinguished blessing from Kasa and Luggle texts. This lust cuts dappest for indigenous cultures, tuck this bamum scrapped of Kamkran, developer bekang anja ans atten nantas as a yanafang fassa for his papla. Worth of kafa 100 kap kizet, ats pak at kapchka proverbs hustus and oven a yanakwa numkang system, but colonial prushkas and dominance of French prodidats yas relegatungat to ceremonial context. Tada fiao then a dozen flant rudders rumman, and with them hangs this fat of santaras of wisdom uncutted on the symbols. Revitalization afkits, lak smartphone apps touching the scrupt afkahap, but the strugged revels are punful truth, scrupts aren't just lust to am. Laka afan salansad befasa, nuglakt, as crushing what of cult, yard assimilatpan, religious texts tell a parallel story. This jaws scrapped of Uthpapa as wov sun, undawed throughout sacred roll, but others once a laka. This glagolitic alphabet, Sarol and Methodas as masterpas, once flakhashad and Slavic liturgia untol's Roman church to shad for Latin letters. Afya Croatian parishes stole yazat, unratk, a loving priest against homogenization. Manwal, this Pahlavi scrapped of pra-Islamic Persia skivavas chafli and Zoroastra and scrapped years, ats intricate letters gadung fad templar rituals. One scrapped bakamas this vasulvkes davan, ats disappelansa as unjust languastak at as sparitel raptia. Yat russelansa flackers on unexpected pluses, this Canadian in yacht for instansa, adapted a syllabic system invented by missionaries ans 1800s, Tanangat, an eti a makkah of cult god prad. The scrapped uppers on strat sons, children's picks, and oven pop music albums, a defant kankpant, generatpans of residential schools that punished native languages. Samalila, this Cherokee Syllabary, born from Sequoia's genres, na thrubs unsassil madera, what tons airpot alongside pmudges, those ant rovavels, the reclamations, prof that scraps can be amma against precedent. This bat isn't just about preserving this past, it's about her guts to shop this fiatia. One chan a simplified its capkes ans nanton faftas to bust literacy, traditionalists wanted of Savkang Tuzd, classic Pautra and Philosopher. Tada, both forms coexist, one efficient, this other utterstuck, reflecting a society straddled modernity and heritage. Conversely, this vanishing of Staffanug scrapped among the Tuareg poplar of North Africa Maur as the nomadic war of life, squazzed by budders and archaeology. Yet young activists now to tie the symbols on the skin, blending ancient glyphs with contemporary prayers. What happens then when a scrap disappears? It is not just words that vanish, it is the slant of a luck that carried a jux punchline, the spasung that signaled respect on rail duckers, this unk struck that mud a lover palm tactile. But as long as those are refused, let this funnel pudge ton with scholars, artists, a tonnages tuxtung an a grandmath his alphabet the story as and avke. Art is sampler wattung his next hand to pack up this pun, mancha scrupt once there's a first ruttung system of chun as kung dunasta, nad tutters uns brunk of salansa. Flung vertically like cascading water, its elegant covers adenad unparalleled adducts in literary classics for sunterers. Yet tudder, fjau than 100 flant rudders rummen, muster them oldula scholars and rummet villagers of Nathas Chana. This story rapports with Tuffanug, this engetuk scrupt of Amazug poplar and North Africa, covered on itikov walls and tattooed on scun from plana, at skivavad Roman conquest in Arab anfla, ans anlit, fad an kamadan ajakatpan palaces favorung Arabic. Those scraps aren't just lazung spackers, they're vanishing volts of Hastera, Philosopher, and was of songs wold, but hap flackers and unexpected places. An Manchura, volunteers run wakan classes what children trust the swapping letters of their ancestors, blundung tradatpan with archnology but sharpen lessons of lovestrums. Langwast kalabkrat with lust generatpan mancha spackers to dudgetas dakpunaries, wolmizashan sat old pautrat muladers, makung the scrapped sang agan. Across the Sahara, Amazigh activists wold Tuffanug as assumed of Aduntata, spra puntungat, unmurals and umbudungat, and smartphone cupboards, Marika oven recognized it as an afushed scrupt an 2011, the implementatpan rummans anavan. Those afkits revel a truth, savung a scrupt as, and just about preserving symbols at sabat reagnatung prad. Archnology, ironically, has become an unluckla ella. Spamum scrupt of Camcron, anadka undungered system, nathravs and digital form thanks a yonikad inatuitive. Young bzagnas kurata bemum font mummos and tushats tunung heritajan eti hapsta shak. Samalilla, this Cherokee natpons language apps gamafa Syllabary lanung. Latung yozers swap through kapkes on the manung commuter. Oven artificial intelligence lands a hand. Researchers tran algorithms to decipher crumbling manuscripts on extant scripts laktangat, a mudpavel rutung system from Western China. Yet this hardest bet isn't against ermat, is against indifferenza. Governments often prioritize global languages for economic pragmatism. Wool communities untunnelas sham avka, old-fashioned scripts. Tak this cus of Nasha, a sacred script developer woman unchan, as Hanan provençat, circumvent literacy bands, its delicate, elongated kapkis, passed but one generatpans on fans and handkerchiefs, nulla vanish until scholars rollers dat, uncutted and untassastated saras and drums. Tada atasen stach nasha an it embroidery sold as at, but's loving tradatpon of compassing palms on it ma already begun, this fjatja of ruttung ma la unhabridata. Just as Japanas blends Kanji with kana, Najanaratpans mux undungered scrups with dominant ones, a twarug tanaja mat tuxton tuffanug and French, a mancha student draft us as on both vertical and horizontal lands. Some scraps like habra prov ravavel as passable but only one cult, God will alons with political support. Others maskavav are as ceremonial scraps, like this unnat calligraphy of Javanas, stole tutan rail cuts but ruller sun and strat suns. What's it is stuck as aren't just linguistics but humanity's collective mama. One a scrap does, walaz a mathan letters walaza this jock scrubbled on its margins. This lover lattersat compassed, this lazat achad an etistan. Yot ans gla of smartphone scruns and this hum of threada pronters rockeratung ancient erpfasses, there's a quat rabullen brong. Avop a chold lands af gatan kapke, an artist splashes it, across a mural, this chun of knowledge stretches a lat fathk an etiths fjatja. question isn't what ka ruttung will pulver, at is her stories will got tubby part of that avalatpan. This future of ruttung isn't just unfolding, at is axeler at tongue at a pass that did love a Guttenberg breathless. Imagine on our assistant that doesn't just correct your grammar, but anticipate your thoughts, compassing sentences as you form them on your mind. Noril inkafas, already on experimental stages, to translate brunwolves directly on it text, bapasung cupboards on tala. Thus isn't sansa fakpon, companies or testing systems were parallelized patents, app but majbnong hendritung matpons, the neural activity decoded on its letters. This very act of ruttung once a dullaber, a dunce about one hand in toll, matsan become as aftless as thunkung ullad, yet with such power come as profound questions. Of algorithms generate avupthung from nuz articlist pautra, does athershap lazards manning, platforms lakjup, but athra already producer kahant users from afya prompts, belongs lan but one human and machine creativity. Some fa a homogenization of stale, a world wa avup amul, novel, and lugelbruff carries the sum polished algorithmic cadenza. But optimists counter that our acted democratis expression, afkang role translatpan for global communication, a hulpung non-native spakas attackitulat others with eloquence. This pan ma not be matter than the sad and this na ara, but this neural network tidba, manwall, pmadges and visual symbols upvolving on it is something far richer than playful embellishments. This Unicode concetum now recognizes of 3,600 pmadges, including regent flags, gender inclusive sons, and even a molten fuss for existential dread. Researchers in Japan are developing subcupmadges that adapt context a hut akon pulsung with sanders hatbat verwabd erk, a run kladakonung on roll amt, match local weather. It was some da communicat complex pmatpans occult, odd concepts through a universal visual lexicon, bapasung language barras altogathk, ancient civilizatpans yuzad pictographs for trad. Akad descendants mat yuz dynamic akans for incastella diplomacy. This very materials of ruttung are transforming ta. Scientists are experimenting with doana ank, uncutting texts on it is synthetic genres that could preserve libraries on artist tabber from planet. Dutch artists have crafted a alpfas using mutated bacteria, while letters gra and changes shop of km. And unlabs from at takara solf arasung tamkrori ank responst lat a tampupsk makung spasab natk an akka frandla palati. This clad tablets of Mesopotamia lasted 5,000 years. Fjatja ruttung madrams mat bad bzagnad vanish after ruttung, lak waspas ans wand. But perhaps this must reduct shaft as ha, a what wool does ruttung. With quantum computing ans horizon, were mat uncounters scrapped sa complex that can only be read by machines, containing lara data invisiblet human a. Blockchain technology already lets us write immutable contracts on its existence, the clauses executing automatically, and as augmented reality glasses ovk la digital text on its physical spaces, is bunders but one page and world solver. This next chapter of ruttung won't just by about ruckadung thoughts at it by about woving them on, it is fabric of a pality itself, one pixel neuron, a atom at a am. From Cuneiform's Wadja Shepherd Max Precedon et Eclat, this glang pmadji followed scruns of tada, ruttung systems have been the silent architects of human civilization. Think about it, avop la, avop apak palm, avop scientific breakthrough began as symbols on a surface, with stun, parchment, a pixels. Those scraps weren't just tools, they were mirrors reflecting the values, strugglers, and ingenuity of cultures that created them. This angetolke precision of Latin letters mirrored Rome's military discipline, wolves flung eleganza of Arabic calligraphy, embodied artistry of Islamic scholars. Even na as was swap and erp were put over chun stretching backed, those first scrubs had dud, much spach visible, what's astonishing us and just as diversity of scrubbed such the rustlancer. Tuck the story of Hangle, bzognad by account, paths masses, as Cherokee Syllabary, fudged and resistancer. The systems want just about communication. There were acts of defense, identity, and samyamskvavel. En konsadkes arana, wolves anknat threatens to homogeneous language, it has also become a laflon for endangered scrubs. You cannot tuxton mancha, twatan tuffanug, a oven rut card an ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs yes, rulla yanakad madat passabla. This very archnology some found did Aristodatpan as javongat nabrath, yet as wahatla an etran aura of our generated prose and norel inkufas atis wath passungt, ask, what mat were lazer of Wolfgang's craftsmanship behind the systems? Those magic answire calligraph brush bunst, papa, a how cuneiform scrub stolers transform kla an et ledger and legend. The next chapter of Rutung might involve a quantum algorithms a brunwovs, but ska impulse romans unchanged, connect to preserve to makak mak. So let's tons mak to you, what scrubbed captivate you must, azat, this geometric master of Indus Valley symbols, as lyrical dancer of Japanese Kanji. Mabayatam runs enchanted by the mystical udger. Drop your pack ons comments would love it, how watch Rutung system sparks your capacity. And if you've unjaw the stop dove on it is symbols that shepherd hasta hot subscribe. This pasta's full of stories watung tubby decaded and were just getting started. Until next cup Rutung your own story, one cup